Hello folks, welcome to another video. And yeah, this is I guess after September 11th or 9/11. Doing lights is causing halo on my contacts again. Just going to get out of the way. I will be smoking Camacho Scorpion, and I think I bought a pack of 5 of these, and I think I got it correctly. Yep, okay. And yeah, this is a double Corona 65 gauge V cut. So this is a pretty sizable cigar. If I were to sit here and just smoke it without talking or yakking, this would be a good 40-minute smoke. And of course, when you smoke a cigar, you want to take your time and enjoy the stick, enjoy the smoke. Cigars aren't meant to be like cigarettes where you get in your nicotine. I know some cigarette smokers, they can get a smoke in like under 3 minutes. I know some co-workers, it's like, hey man, you got enough time? You got 5 minutes, man. You got enough time to smoke? And before the break's over? Yeah. Like, damn, dude. But cigars are not like cigarettes where you enjoy it. It is more expensive. You smoke cigars for the flavor, for the taste. Now, this one smells really nice. It is a darker wrapper, but it's not a Maduro. It's not listed as a Maduro. So let's toast it. Yeah, I got my quad Cigar. And I do recommend this one also. So if you want to get a quad, you actually have to manually flip the top. And this one was expensive when it first came out. But yeah, I bought it the first year it came out. But it's been a few years now. And yes, and it does have a little notch on the bottom that, and there's also I guess an arrow on the turn dial for your flame level. And I guess the recommendation is to put the arrow on the dial on the notch, and that is, according to Cigar, according to their engineer, is, at least for this lighter, is the optimum flame. And at least on mine, I guess they're correct, because that is a and I've put it on and left it on there, and it's been working for me. So it's almost like a let's see here, the setting. It's almost like a medium high. It's like a setting between medium and high before you get into the high setting, so that you don't. Now that one actually has a pretty big reservoir, luckily. So that one, I guess the flame's not too big, so you don't burn through your fuse supply. And but of course, if you're at home, you easily. Let's see. Let me touch it up. There's one little spot. There he goes. You can easily refill it or get another lighter. If you're at a smoke shop. Or a cigar shop. Pretty much all cigar shops allow you to smoke. You can borrow someone's lighter, or just use the the mini lighters and cutters that the cigar shop offers for the smokers. I don't taste any bitterness, so it's definitely not a strong cigar. I would say a mild smoke, as you can see. Nice billowy smoke. Smooth, actually, yeah. Love it when nice smooth draw. I guess I've been lucky with my last few cigars. It's a nice smooth draw, especially on a big gauge cigar. You won't have to be fighting the cigar to smoke. You have to bring out your poker and poke holes all over it. So, all right. So of course I'll talk about my 9/11 experience. So basically, I was sitting at work, typing away, doing what I do back then. So a coworker comes up. He said, "Hey, man, that a plane flew into the World Trade Center." I was like, "A plane? Yeah." In my mind, I'm thinking, some dude lost control of his little Cessna, and flew it into the World Trade Center because he lost control. So that's my thinking. Like, okay. And then, a little bit later, and then at this point, when the second plane hits, is when everybody and myself start taking notice. Like, hey, second plane hit the second world. I'm like, wait a minute, man. And of course, in the break room at this, particular place I worked at the time, the break room had a TV, so we're all like, hey, man, let's let's go into the break room. Let's turn on, CNN before they became woke. Yeah, and sure enough, to our I guess horror, it's like, what the hell, man? So I was talking to the coworker, and I was like, I thought like a little plane, like a Cessna or something, flew into the tower, and looking at the damage, it's like, nah. And of course, they kept replaying. And the thing is that New York is a tourist city, so there are tourists there with cameras. So I guess some tourists or some folks who had their camera running. I've never been to Manhattan or New York, the Manhattan area. I've had friends and relatives who've gone, and they're like, yeah, well, other than the World Trade Center and the Empire State Building, there's and Central Park, but none of them. I guess none of my friends or relatives actually visited Central Park, but they went to the World Trade Center. They went to the Empire State Building. Of course, it's not free. I think back then it was like 20. They went back, and of course they went. I think my aunt and uncle went 2 years. Yeah, they went in 1999. It was them and my mom. I think my sister went too. And they're all like, when I spoke to them later, like, yeah, we just went there and went up to the. They didn't go to the top. They went up to like the top observation floor before you actually go outside to the roof. And I think it was something like $20 per person to go up. It was not too expensive even for back then. Now, I don't know how much it is now for the new World Trade Center to go up to its observation tower or observation lounge at the top. I think you can go out into the roof also. Of course, they got the. If you look at the old videos, they got the the anti climbing or anti suicide fences put up. You're like, yeah, we were just there like 2 years ago. What the heck, man? Now it's gone. Yeah, but everybody's horrified. Nobody, we're all in shock. Nobody could work. We're like, so the boss was nice, and he was like, hey, look, guys, I understand what happened. The day's already half over. I know all you guys are in shock. So go ahead and take the day off. We're like, okay, man, because ain't no one going to be doing any work anyways. Because everybody was in the break room. It's like, what the hell, man? Who did this? Why did they do it? And of course, I won't get too far into the conspiracy theory stuff. Was some guys from the Middle East that did it? Yeah, that part I agree with. Yeah, there were some dudes from the Middle East. I have a feeling those dudes had prior training before they came to the U.S. I guess since I'm talking about that, I'll go ahead and touch up on it. So basically, supposedly these 9 or 7 hijackers came from the Middle East. I think it was Saudi Arabia, that area, and they all went and took, I guess, piloting school. Yes, there is actually a guess, airline piloting school that you can attend. A lot of times, if you get hired on to an airline as a pilot, they'll send you to the. I guess even if you're an Air Force pilot, I guess if you get hired on, they still send you to the. Or if you're a civilian, well, at this point you're a civilian, of course. Or even if you're a civilian like me who've never flown, or maybe you had, a small plane piloting experience. Because someone like me who don't have any piloting experience at all, airlines probably wouldn't hire you, and even then, sending you to a piloting school, probably you're still behind the ball. Yeah, but basically, yes, airlines will send you. You can actually, out of your own pocket, go to one of these, I guess, airline pilot training schools. Yeah, they have one here in Dallas, because American Airline is based here, and American Airline has one of their pilot training facilities just outside of Dallas. And yes, if you want to pay the, I don't know how much it is, but it's probably not cheap. But if you want to pay the money, you can actually pay the money and learn to fly an actual commercial airliner, as opposed to what these guys did, which was went to I guess a piloting school to learn how to fly a single engine Cessna. And yes, you as a pilot, you get a different ranking on your pilot's license, such as single engine, multiple engine, a jet engine, or cargo plane pilot license, or a commercial pilot's license where you fly, like a 757 or 747. Yeah, but most pilots who come out of the military, such as the Air Force, that goes into the airline, usually those guys are the cargo plane pilots. And yes, there are tons of there are actually more of those than fighter jets. So if you're a pilot or you're a co-pilot in the Air Force on a like a C-17, C-4, or what's called what do you call the Hercules? It's a C-7, no, C-17, Hercules. I think they're called C-17, and whatever other cargo planes that the Air Force use. But a lot of times, those are the guys that actually sign on with the with airlines. Not that the jet pilot guys don't. I'm pretty sure they do too. It's actually more money than what the Air Force is paying the guys. And what people are saying is that these guys trained on a little Cessna. They've I know that they had no experience with the big airliners that they took over, and that and the way that they flew them was and of course we're trying to compare. Let's see here, because it would be like you're a student, you're I guess a first-time student driver. You go to some driver's ed school. They teach you on an automatic, or on an automatic car. So now you're gonna go hijack some 20 speed 18-wheeler. See here, okay. Some 20 speed a 20 speed 18-wheeler, and it would be the equivalent of that. So it's what these guys did. Or I get another one that I would be familiar with, since I also ride motorcycles. It's like you take your moped, you go to your driver's ed school, and they teach you on a moped, or they teach you on a motorcycle that doesn't shift gears. And then suddenly they stick you in a Hayabusa. And then suddenly you get your scooter license, and now you're being thrown on a Hayabusa, and going down the highway at 100 miles an hour. So that part I kind of, it's like, well, okay, I guess. I mean, the guys did it somehow. I don't know if they had I'm thinking these guys had prior training before coming to the U.S. is basically what I'm saying. Yeah, this is a big cigar, and it is, like I say, it's nice and smoky, billowy smoke. I don't taste any bitterness, so it's definitely not a strong cigar. It is a good cigar, though, I'm telling you. Yeah, Camacho's been around forever. I've just not really. The first Camacho I smoked was the Triple Maduro. Now that one will kick your ass. The Camacho Triple Maduro. I bought like a bundle of 10 years ago, and of course I've gone through, I guess, some of my older videos that maybe I probably deleted those, because I think like once every 2 years I go through and purge my old videos. or every 2 or 3 years I purge old videos. And I used to keep the at least for a year I would keep videos, and of course after a year, at least on my hard drive, after a year I'll purge them, I'll delete them off the hard drive, just in case something comes up and I need to re-upload the video or something. But now I don't even keep it. Once I get it edited, get it uploaded, it's off the hard drive. So if I screw up, it's like, well, that's it. I guess that video is lost. Yeah, so I go to my dad's house because he lived close to where I worked at the time, and he was home. I come over and knock on the door, go inside. So it looks like, I guess my buddy, I guess my brother and his buddy, my buddy too. They were already there. So when I walked in, because I guess everybody sort of worked, near. I guess because my dad lived like here in Dallas Fort Worth. It's called I guess these between Dallas and Fort Worth we call the mid cities. So we're I guess the smaller cities in between Dallas and Fort Worth. Yeah, if you drive from Fort Worth to Dallas, it's a good, depending on how fast you drive, and depending on how much traffic there is, it's about a 40-minute to 50-minute drive. With traffic, an hour plus. And there are these little cities in the middle, and that's where my dad lived at the time. And we all, of course, since he was central, and we were all getting off of work early, because of the terrorist attack. So we all just sort of met up at his house. It wasn't. We of course back then we didn't have smartphones, and I had to actually look it up. So it looks like the Apple iPhone, the iPhone 1, came out in I think it was February 29th, 2017. Not 17, 2007. So 2007, February 29th, 2007. And yes, I was one of the first people to go, because back then I had the Nokia brick phone. And of course I had a Motorola flip phone, but at that time I had one of the Nokia brick phones. So we didn't there wasn't any texting or anything like that. We didn't call each other. Yes, we had cell phones back then, but they weren't smartphones. So it wasn't another 5 years before Apple came out with their smartphone. And I kept it for the longest time, even after I got the iPhone 2 and iPhone 3. Then I switched over to Samsung, but I kept it for the longest time. I have no idea where it is right now. It's probably one of my boxes. If you got one, if the battery will charge, you got a piece of history. I wouldn't sell. And if you have the original iPhone 1, I wouldn't sell it. No, you got a piece of history right there. Yeah, and mine was pristine. He wasn't. I may have dropped it a few times, but the screen wasn't scratched. I kept the cover on it, so it was pristine. And again, I don't know where it is. It's probably in one of the boxes in storage, or I may have threw it in the trash. So anyways, yeah. So back then, It was either the Motorola flip phone or the Nokia brick phone. And yes, Nokia is still in business. They still make cell phones, and they don't make smartphones, but I guess they make other kinds of, I guess, cell phones, and they're still around. The Finnish company. You know, they still make They also still make communications gear. Yeah, so we all show up, and of course, the TV was on. My dad's sitting there with my brother, you know, and our buddy, and we're all in shock. We're like, what the hell, man? You know, who would have done this to us? What's going on? And of course, then later, Bush came on with his, and as it turns out, you know, back then we were told that, hey, Bush is, you know, he's on Air Force One. You know, he's up in the air. I think it's either CNN or whatever said, hey, Bush is on Air Force One. He's up in the air. He's protected. But as it turns out, he wasn't. When he was first notified of the first plane hitting the World Trade Center 1, he was at some elementary school in Florida, and he stayed there for 30 more minutes with the kids, you know, reading some storybook, and yes, and the local news was there. They were filming it, and you know, he was calm, as he should be. Yeah, because the guy, you can see the guy walking up going, hey, you know, whispering in his ear. The guy walks off, and then Bush just sort of, yeah. And of course, you know, Bush is an asshole. Both senior and junior, and the Clintons, Obamas and Bidens are all assholes. They're all part of the good old boys club. So they're saying after that, then he, you know, got onto, you know, Air Force One, flew to, I guess it was two Air Force bases. So he wasn't like, you know, he was in the air, and you know, he's being protected. So it was actually the opposite of that. He, you know, they're like, he was acting nonchalant, like, yeah, this is a nothing burger. That's if the ash fell down. And of course, back then we didn't know. You know, we listened to what CNN said, and of course CNN back then actually reported the news. So basically, it was 4 planes. 2 went into the World Trade Center, 1 to the Pentagon, and the one that crashed in the field in Pennsylvania was supposed to go to, and they don't know, this either it was heading for the White House, or it was heading for the Capitol building. And in my opinion, it is probably heading for the White House. So, you little, don't sniff the cigar ash, you'll turn green and barf, dog. And of course, with the, you know, the Democrats and the lefties, you know, the Democrats and the rhinos, saying, you know, January 6th is worse than 9/11. Well, let me compare 9/11 to January 6th. You know, nearly 3,000 people died. You know, and I lived through September 11th, and most of you folks who are in Congress now lived through. You guys are all old enough. Except for maybe AOC. You know, she's you know, she's probably like sucking on her mom's teat back then. Yeah, she's. I guess when she first came in office, she wasn't even over 30. So yeah, so AOC is young. You know, cause, yeah, I mentioned her because she's one of those that's yelling. You know, it's worse than 9/11, worse than Pearl Harbor. So they had people jumping out of the buildings, and yes, the CNN back then, they were showing people jumping out of the building until I guess maybe one of the producers or someone like, hey man, stop showing these people jumping out of the buildings. And so they stopped doing it. We lost two 90-story buildings. The Pentagon got attacked. Either the Capitol building or the White House was going to be taken out, but I guess, you know, the guy, you know, maybe the guy that was in charge of that deed maybe had a change of a change of plans, like, yeah, man, or maybe, you know, maybe he got a call from Bush. Hey, you know, change of plan. Bush is not in the White House, so just go ahead and crash that plane into the field in Pennsylvania. Or maybe the guy had it, you know, was like, hey, I don't want to do this, you know, I don't want this on my head. You know, I guess he's, you know, I guess he didn't get his 70 virgins. Unlike the other guys, you know, I guess they got their 70 virgins in the, I guess in the afterlife. So who knows? You know, maybe, yeah, like I said, maybe that guy changed his mind. I'm not doing it. Crashed a plane, or maybe he just got lost, you know, and you know, got lost and just decided, hey, screw it, I don't know which way to go to get to the White House or to D.C. and decided to just crash the plane. That's probably what more it was. The guy got lost, didn't know where D.C. was, and just crashed the plane. Yeah, and I'm just touching, you know, the conspiracy theory stuff goes deep. Yeah, surprisingly, there are videos still on YouTube about 9/11 conspiracies, and I'm surprised YouTube is allowing these videos to still be up. And these videos are recently uploaded. So I'm not talking about videos that have been on YouTube for years. These are just recently uploaded. Now maybe the YouTube AI hasn't found them or found out about them. What's the dog doing out there? Let me take the band off. And what the heck? There we go. Okay, yeah, nice. Yeah, this is a big ass band. Yeah, so you took the band out, now the cigar's naked. It looks a lot bigger. So yeah, so that's my opinion. That's probably what happened. So if you think about it, if that guy actually got his bearings and got into D.C. and took out either the White House or the Capitol building, of course Bush was gone. Congress is still in session at that time. You know, it's the middle of the day. I'm pretty sure. I believe, I don't remember, but I think CNN mentioned that, you know, Congress has been evacuated. Yeah, I think they got evacuated, you know, upon the first plane hitting, you know, World Trade Center 1. So yeah, I mean, of course, you know, the Capitol building or the White House would be pretty much destroyed if a 757 comes crashing into either of those buildings. Yeah, so so you're trying to compare, you know, January 6th to 9/11 is ridiculous. That you're making light, you know, of the U.S. being attacked. See here. I think that was and of course, you know, the building collapsing. You know, when the first building went down, you know, I thought, I didn't say anything, but I thought to myself, like, why is the building collapsing? It you know, it caught on fire, but you know, I've never seen a building catch fire and collapse. And then building number 2 collapsed. You know, now when building number 7, of course I know it's building number 7 back then. But when building number 7 collapsed, I made a note, said, hey man, that one building collapsed, what the heck? And of course, my brother and dad, they're like, well, you know, that's because the World Trade Center probably, you know, collapsed into it and caused it to collapse, because it is a 90-story, I think they're either 90 stories or they're like 100 and something story tall building. They're freaking tall. Now they're not the tall. At one time they were the tallest building in the U.S. I don't think they were the tallest building in the world, but at one time they were in the U.S. Hey, calm down, dog. You're not tough, little dog. Calm down. Yes, and there was, yes, she had a barking match with a skunk. You know, it was like a 2 a.m. I'm asleep. Of course, they got their dog door, so they're free to go in and out. And she's barking her head off. I was like, man, it woke me up. So I was like, okay, let's give her a few seconds, see if she stops. Okay, I was like, all right, she ain't stopping. So I grabbed the flashlight, coming through the yard and shining around. I find her. I was like, okay, what is she barking at? Because she was standing like kind of in the middle of the yard, barking towards the corner. It's like, man, better not be a dude climbing the fence, right? So I kind of panned the flashlight over to where she was barking at, and there was a skunk. And yes, this area has skunks, possums, raccoons. And luckily she was far enough away, and luckily the skunk didn't spray. And of course the skunk, he had his tail up, and I could see it was black and had white stripes. I was like, oh shit. So I yelled at her, be quiet, come here. And yeah, she actually is. She's a good little doggy. She listens. So she stopped barking and came over to me. And the skunk, since the dog stopped barking, the skunk's like, okay, the threat, the threat has stopped, and it ran and went underneath the fence. I guess there's a little hole there that the animals that goes through my backyard dug. It's not big enough that the dogs will fit through, but it's big enough that I guess animals like rabbits and I guess skunks and possums can squeeze under. And yes, I've actually taken dirt, covered them up. They'll dig it up again. What are you doing? You make sure you chew on that rawhide, dog, and no barking. As long as she's chewing the rawhide, she won't be barking. And yes, she will leave it on the porch in the yard. I gotta pick them up. And or I'll take a rock or a brick, stick it in the hole, or they'll dig another spot. Yeah, it's not the dogs doing it. It's the furry woodland creatures that's doing it. Yeah, so I mentioned that, and they're like, yeah, man, that's because the World Trade Center probably fell and hit it and knocked it down. But if you look at the video, it showed the building going straight down as opposed to like something hitting it and toppling it over. And yes, there are firefighters who, many firefighters that they interviewed, that mentioned that they heard explosions before the buildings came down. So again, that's part of the conspiracy theory that the buildings were purposely destroyed. And yes, the building number 7 is an accounting building. So I guess someone lost their debt. I guess since the debt is lost, kind of like the Pentagon. The day before Rumsfeld, the warmonger, he came out and reported that that the Pentagon lost. They don't know what happened to $2.3 trillion. We spent it and we don't know what we did with it. We lost track of the spend. We lost track of what we spent it on and where that $2.3 trillion went. And after that plane hit the Pentagon's, and it happened to hit the Pentagon's accounting office area. And that area was under renovation, but they left the papers there. So no one died because there was nobody in that area because it was closed off for renovations. How fortunate, But since the area is closed off for renovation, they kept the paper there. The paper that the paper that detailed where the $2.3 trillion was spent, or where it went. I'm like, man, that's some coincidence. Also, coincidence is the owner of the World Trade Center, some guy named Silverstein. I don't know. I think it's John. His first name John Silverstein. So it just so happened he, I think, had a doctor's appointment that day, so he wasn't there. And his office is on like the very top floor. So yeah, so his ass would have been stuck because anyone that's above the where the planes hit you weren't getting down. And yes, they were doing helicopter rescue of people who climbed up to the roof. And yeah, and it was it was a clusterfuck basically. It was like, okay, they don't have, and yeah, and even the news guys, CNN, said they didn't have any kind of a plan, because New York, have all of these, high-rise skyscrapers, and they don't have a plan on in case the building catches fire and people goes up to the roof, and they don't have a plan of rescuing, 20, 30, 40, 50 people that get stuck on the roof. Yeah, I was like, yeah, that's or maybe they had the plan, but they were like, yeah, don't bother. So none of his family. So basically, this Silverstein guy works in the world, or he owns it. So I guess his office is there. Both of his son and daughters work there, and that day they didn't go into work. So none of his family went into work that day. So how lucky, you know? Yeah, I'm being sarcastic when I say how lucky. And of course, he got the insurance money on the two towers. No, which was worth I don't know how much it was. I don't know how much he got, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't, you know, a couple of $1,000s, or even a couple of millions. Is probably, you know, it's probably $1 billion or $2 billion. And the other conspiracy theory, you know, the gold vans, you know, the vans filled with gold that were in the basement. You know, those it's unconfirmed. We don't know. People just saying, you know, there were you know, kind of brings not your mom and not your soccer mom van, filled with gold, but vans like the Brinks security truck type vans, or the I guess the bank security vans like Brinks. It was those vans that filled with gold. Supposedly that was in the basement, or the parking garage underneath the World Trade Center. And people are like, we don't know where those gold vans, they vanished basically. Now that one I don't know. And of course, people saying jet fuel does not burn or melt. Jet fuel does not. Yeah, there was the neighbor's dog, the Rottweiler. But people saying jet fuel doesn't melt a steel beam, and I would agree. Jet fuel doesn't melt steel beam. But you have to take into account that a 757, a 757 is a big jet plane. Trump's plane is a 757, and it is huge. So something that size, and yes, the World Trade Centers are huge. They take up like I guess each one of them take up like 4 square block, or is it 3 square block, something, 3 or 4 square block. So they are, I guess, you know, height wise and girth wise, they were huge ass buildings. But if something the size of a 747, you know, flies into a building, it's going to take out support columns. It's going to take out beams. So you have to take that into account. And then you got this, you know, huge ass fire from the these planes were still fully loaded with fuels, because it was only like 10-15 minutes that they took off, and then the hijackers took over the plane. So the planes were still fully loaded with fuel. So people say, my counter to that is, well, you know, you got these big ass jet planes that flew into these buildings, so they're going to take out, you know, because if you look at the video, you see the plane flying into one side of the into one side of the building, then you see an explosion go out the other side of the building. So all of the you know, concrete, yeah, in buildings there are the frames are made out of, you know, steel beams, and then the steel beams is not enough to support the buildings. Buildings of that size have to have reinforced concrete pillars or concrete columns, and and depending on the size of the building, something like the World Trade Center probably got like 10 or 20 of them going all the way, you know, through the building from the floor to the top. You know, something like a big airliner hitting the building, you know, at 400 or 500 miles an hour, and like I say, the explosion going out the other side, it probably took out, you know, majority, if not all, of the concrete support pillars. So what you got left are the steel beams, and like I said, steel beams, it's not enough to support buildings. You know, they have to have columns to support them. So if you take out the columns and the building's on fire, you know, eventually, you know, the metal's going to buckle, because metals do bend. Concrete don't burn. That's the thing. So, you know, dog. So if the concrete pillars all stayed intact, kind of like most building fires that you see, the even 5 alarm, it's called, yeah, even 5 alarm fires in these high-rise buildings, the concrete pillars, they don't burn, so these buildings don't collapse. And the fire, you know, the fire has to get to like, for steel melts, I think, at around 10,000 degree. So it takes a lot of heat to melt steel. So yeah, so unless the fire gets up to 10,000 degree, which is like a furnace, even a 5-alarm fire doesn't get that hot. So you see these 5-alarm fires in these high rises, and you never see them collapse because one, concrete doesn't catch fire, and concrete is fire resistant. So yeah, so the columns don't get burnt down. The steel frame, the steel beams, the frames doesn't melt. So yeah, you never see these high-rise fires where the building collapses. But yeah, but that's sort of my take on it. I'm not a building engineer, but I've read up on how buildings and stuff are built, and yeah, and if you watch back, I think it was when Discovery Channel, History Channel used to show actual shows and not these was it the, I don't know, they're still showing the garage pickers, these I guess reality shows. I think there was a show, I think it was on Discover, or it might have been one of the other Discovery channels that Discover has, and they showed how buildings. There was one where the dude would go around the world, showing, hey, here's a new building that's being built, here's a bridge that's being built, and I was interested in it because it was educational, and they would show that, hey, yeah, you got to have these support columns in these buildings along with the beams. So it was educational, and I learned something. And that's about as much as I will touch on the conspiracy theory. And I guess as for Bin Laden, in my opinion, Bin Laden is the scapegoat. Here you have a guy who's living in a cage in Afghanistan. No running water, no electricity. The guy's on dialysis, so they have I guess a mobile dialysis machine that they hook him up to. So no water, no electricity. You have to poop in buckets. No sewage. So these guys are pooping in buckets. And you're telling me this guy coordinated the attack on the World Trade Center? Yeah, he was an scapegoat basically. Now he may have had something to do with it, but I don't think he was the mastermind. He might have been the middleman, if anything. But I guess the middleman was the scapegoat. Yeah, because the guy didn't love the U.S. I'll tell you that much. But he wasn't the mastermind. He might have been the middleman. He might have been the Walmart manager, equivalent. All right, yeah, let's see if the ash fell off again. And yeah, so and of course the Queen had her funeral. Now I didn't know that the Queen had 4 children, and I always thought it was Charles and Andrew. So it turns out she had 4, so 3 boys. I mean, if she was a regular mom, having 3 boys, that's a freaking handful. So she had 3 boys and 1 girl. I guess Princess Anne. I never heard of her. And then there's a Princess Edward, and I've heard of him, but again, the 2 that everyone's familiar with is Charles and Andrew. And I think Charles is the oldest. Or maybe Andrew's the oldest, but anyway, I think Charles is the oldest. That's why it goes to him. Or maybe the other 2 are like, we don't want it, give it to Charles. Right, so it's 4 kids, and again, I think of the 4 kids, the sister, Princess Anne, she's probably the one that's probably the least screwed up. The one that's not into the pedal stuff. And yeah, and I'm pretty sure she knows this of her brothers, but she's like, well, you know what? If mom's okay with it, then I guess there's nothing I can say, nothing I can do. And yes, and there's this TikTok video. And again, I don't know how old Andrew is, but there's this TikTok video that shows them, I guess, laying wreath at Queen Elizabeth's funeral. And in this video, it shows Andrew with his hand up his daughter's skirt, and it was quick because the video panned to it, and it shows him pulling his hand out. Shows him pulling his hand out from underneath her skirt. You know, and people watching is like, "Oh, what the hell? Well, what the?" You know, it's like, you can't wait. No, it's like, this is your mom's funeral, and here you are groping your daughter. And yes, if I don't know if TikTok has taken it down, but I think people on alternate social media such as Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, they should have it. So if you want to see it, you know, just go and search for it in one of those alternate. Heck, YouTube might still have it. I don't know. YouTube's kind of you know, they've kind of softened their lefty totalitarian view a little bit as of late. But yeah, in the TikTok video, it shows Andrew, and when the camera pans over, it shows his hand coming out from underneath her skirt. And yeah, and there's no reason for his hand, because she's standing up, he's kneeling down. I guess they're laying the wreath or flowers. So she's standing next to him. He's, you know, on his knee or crouched down. And like, again, in the video, it shows his hand coming up underneath her skirt, and you can see her skirt fluttering too. So it wasn't some, you know, some CGI, you know, or some fancy video editing. Yeah, and of course the people watching the video were like, "What the hell, man? He couldn't wait. You know, this is his mom's funeral, man. You know, at least wait until you get home." And yes, and his daughter is a grown ass woman, so she's I think she's grown. I don't know how old his daughter is, but I think she's an adult. But you know, I mean, wait till you at least get home, you know, for your degeneracy to you know, basically showing his degeneracy to the world at this point. And Charles is no better. There's reports that he and his sons don't get along. Alright, so yeah, so the funeral is done, but I guess there's 17 days. There's probably 14 more days now. I think she passed on either Wednesday or Tuesday or Wednesday of last week. So it's been about 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so it's just 5 days. So I guess 12 more days of mourning. And again, I don't know if schools are closed, banks are closed for the 17 days of mourning. Okay, and I guess I'll close it on the Ukraine and Europe. So yeah, so basically I guess in Reuters, CNN, you know, they all keep reporting, "Hey man, Putin screwed up. Russia's losing. Ukraine made a big push and they defeated Russia." You know, I'm like, what are you talking about? They defeated Russia. So basically, Zelensky rounded up 10,000 of his troops and sent them on the offensive into the Kharkov region. And of course, Russia, they got satellites. You know, they got their spy planes up. You know, I mean, moving 10,000 soldiers, you know, with tanks, artillery and stuff, you're going to get seen. You know, this isn't World War I or World War II where you can move, you know, 10,000 men and not be seen. And yes, they did that in World War II. Was that I guess the German counter offensive? You know, they had to be like shush, quiet, because it was basically the Germans' last. It was the Germans' last push, kind of like this. It was the Zelensky and his Nazis' last push, and they had to be quiet because at this point the Allies have made it into Germany. So that, you know, the Germans got, you know, whatever soldier they got left, and you know, and whatever, you know, tanks in their Panzer division they had left, and they were going to do one last push and break through the Allied line, which thankfully failed. And the same thing happened here. The Zelensky and his Nazi soldiers, they made their, I think there's a name for that. I guess during World War II is a. And of course you had the Battle of the Bulge, which of course bogged down the Germans at that town. Don't forget the name of the town that the Battle of the Bulge took place in. But that basically stymied the Germans, or the Nazis at this point. Just call them Nazis, I guess. And the same thing happened here with Zelensky. You know, he took 10,000 men and equipment, decided to attack the Kharkov region to break through the Russian line, and they failed. And yes, I would say thousands. Whoa, is that you, Pepe? Pepe the Frog? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the Russians are reporting that 4,000 Ukrainian soldiers are dead, up to 8,000 plus wounded. The Ukrainians are reporting thousands of Russian soldiers dead, but they didn't give an exact number, because I guess, you know, if you're the one that got your ass kicked, you're not going to be able to, canvass the battlefield for the dead. Unlike the Russians, because the Russians won, so they were able to canvass the battlefield and do a body count, to where the Ukrainians couldn't. The Ukrainians just saying, yeah, there are thousands of dead Russian soldiers, which I would believe. You know, you go into a battle with 10,000 against 10,000 soldiers, you're going to lose, you know, a pretty surmountable number of soldiers. And yes, the Russians have air superiority. Ukraine does still have a little bit of jet fighters, mainly the Su-25, which is basically the Russian version of the Warthog. Yeah, and those seem to be the one that's doing the bulk of the air raids. Of course, there's the I guess the Ka-52. They call it the Alligator, which is basically a double counter-rotating rotor helicopter. It looks weird, but it works. I guess the U.S. tried doing that with the counter-rotating, but the Russians were able to do it, and they the Ka-52 helicopter, attack helicopter, and then the workhorse, the Su-25, which is their version of the Warthog. So of course the side that's got air superiority is always 9 out of 10 times is going to win. So yes, so the Russians may have thousands of soldiers dead, but they won that battle of Kharkov, and of course they sent like a big number. Of course, you see 10,000 soldiers coming, you're going to send in a large number of soldiers to counter it. So now that battle's over, they're sending the soldiers who are there to other regions of Ukraine for other offenses. And I think, in my opinion, that's like the last. That's kind of like the Germans' last push to, when the Allies got close to Germany. That was their last push. This is probably Zelensky's last push. Last effort push. Because at this point, the Russians they're taking out. They're taking out the power stations. They're like, okay, well, look, we've been nice. Now we're going to start taking out your power stations. And yes, YouTube has these Ukraine live feeds that I've checked it when the war first started. I hadn't bothered. I was like, okay, let me check these feeds and see what it's showing. And I think Ukraine is about 10 to 12 hours ahead of us. I think they're 10 hours ahead of us, so it's our nighttime. It will be like their mid-morning, or right now, whereas 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. So over there is probably 7 or 8 in the morning. There's no sun's rising, and of course it's been raining because I've been check it out. So okay, well I don't see anything here. I'll wait till it gets dark. So I said I want to wait until it gets dark and see how dark the city looks. And yeah, the city, or wherever these cameras are looking at, you see like little spots of lights, but it's pretty dark. So I guess they're whatever electricity that they got, they're sending it to places that I guess needs electricity, over like hospitals, you know, police stations and fire stations. So my suggestion on that is, you know, check out news on both sides. That's what I'm doing. I'm checking out the MSN in the West, and I'm checking out the I guess independent reporters who are over there in that Ukraine region. So basically, there's two regions in Ukraine that broke away: the Lugansk, the LPR, Lugansk People's Republic, the DPR, the Donetsk People's Republic. No, that would be like. Yes, and that region is heavy Russian population. They speak Russian. A lot of Ukrainians also speak Russian. So that would be like an equivalent of South California, saying, "Hey, we want to break away. We want to be independent. You know, we want to be part of Mexico." Because if you go to Southern California right now, it's basically Mexico. People there speak English, but pretty much, you know, it's pretty much Mexico. They also speak Spanish. A lot of things are in Spanish there. In some places, it's just flat out Spanish. It's not even English on the signs or posters. It's on advertisements and stuff. So let's say, you know, Southern California decides, you know, hey, we declare our independence. We want to be part of Mexico, and then Biden decides, no, you don't. I'm sending my F-15s to take you guys out. Yeah, F-15s flown by tranny pilots, I guess. And that's basically what Zelensky did, or the guy before him, because Zelensky got in 2018. So it was Zelensky and the guy before him said, no, you guys don't. We're sending, you know, so they sent the Ukrainian military in to attack the Lugansk and the Donetsk region. And if something like that happens, where let's say Southern California decides to break away, yeah, I would see Biden sending soldiers in, which of course would which of course the American folks would be against. So that's basically what Zelensky did. So now those two regions are, so basically Putin's pretty much, you know, liberated those two regions. So now they've formed up their own militias, and they're counterattacking along with the Russians. So basically you got the LPR militia, the DPR militia, who are pretty much the ground troops. No, the guys in the tanks, the foot soldiers. The Russians are supplying artillery and they're supplying air support, but the bulk of the ground assault is being done by the Donetsk militia and the Lugansk militia. And yes, and of course you got, you know, Russian forces in other areas, but those two areas are pretty much being fought by their own militias. Yes, and I say militia because they're not in established countries yet, I guess. So they don't have, like, say, an actual standing army. So it's just pretty much guys who are volunteering to go fight. Like, these guys they're doing it for free. They're volunteering. That's what a militia is. You know, you're not getting paid. This is, you know, you're volunteering to go fight. No, these guys aren't mercenaries because they're in their own country. It'd be like the U.S. You'd be like the U.S. is under attack, and you know, the military got wiped out. So now you're only stuck with that would be bad. But now you're only stuck with militias who are fighting on behalf of the U.S. You know, if you're fighting on behalf of your own country, you're not a mercenary. You are a militia. And yeah, and also I guess another scenario would be you know, Mexico decides to join the BRICS nation. So now you add an M at the end, so now it'll be BRICS M. So if Mexico, then that's how Russia views the Ukraine. So if Mexico decides to suddenly join the BRICS nation, the U.S. wouldn't even if it was Trump in office, the U.S. wouldn't stand for it, because it wouldn't be long before you start seeing, you know, Russian base or Chinese base, military bases start popping up in Mexico. You know, missiles start showing up in Mexico. You know, Russian or Chinese missiles start showing up in Mexico. Because that's exactly what would happen if Ukraine joins NATO. Before, you know, it won't take long before U.S. bases start showing up. You know, U.S. NATO bases start showing up in Ukraine. You know, F-15 start showing up in the bases. You know, missiles start showing up. Because that's exactly what the U.S. would do. That's exactly what, you know, Russia or China would do if Mexico decides. And I know Canada won't, but let's say Mexico or even Honduras or Guatemala decides to join. Yeah, it won't be long before Chinese or Russian bases start showing up. You know, fighter jets start showing up. You know, missiles start showing up. So think of it that way. To where it's like, because if you think about it, hey, it's overseas. I don't care. I don't know. You know, I don't know the topology of the region, but yeah, you know, Mexico's right next to the U.S. So that kind of brings it home a little bit. Or in the case of Texas, if Southern Texas, which is heavily Hispanic, you know, so if Southern Texas decide, hey, we want to break away, we want to be independent, you know, we want to be part of Mexico, which ain't going to happen. Same thing with Southern. There was a talk of, I guess a few years back of, you know, I guess breaking California into a Northern California, a Middle California, and a Southern California, and there was a referendum for it, but I guess the vote didn't go through. And that would have temporarily fixed California, a northern, middle, a northern, central, and south California. But you know, like I say, it would have just temporarily fixed their socialist problem that they got over there. Yeah. So basically, and I'll close it on this time. Yeah. So basically, yeah, Putin, he's stepping it up. He's like, you know, at first, you know, because at first he's like, okay, you know, he still doesn't want to do too much damage to the infrastructure, you know, killing people left and right, but just bombing, you know, buildings full of civilians. But he's now taken out the electricity. So basically, if you don't have electricity, you're back to the 17th century, or even worse, you're back to the Middle Ages in an instant. Think about it. If the electricity goes out, you know, if the electricity goes out, you gotta you know, cook your food in an open fire, you know, heat your house in an open fire, boil your water in open fire. Sewage will still work, but water won't work because the pumps, it requires electricity to pump the water into the at least here in the U.S. I don't know about other. I've been to other countries and I've looked. I don't see any water towers. It's only here in the U.S. that you'll see water towers. I guess in other countries they just pump it to a pumping station and then pressurize it. Yes, but in order to get water into those water towers that you see dotting the neighborhoods here in the U.S. And yes, and tall buildings like in New York, they have their own. They got their own pump at the top of the buildings that pumps water up into a reservoir that's up at the top of the building, and that reservoir is what feeds the water to the residents in the building, or if it's an office building. Buildings that are like, you know, I think 5 stories and lower doesn't require a pump, and a reservoir at the top. I think if it's 10 stories or taller, yeah, you need it. But yes, it requires a pump to filter chlorinate, clean the water, and then pump it up to the. So once the water runs out in the in the water towers, that's it. And also on top of that, the filtration system doesn't work. Kind of like here in North Texas, we had a during the storm, I think 3 or 4 years ago, I guess we called it the storm of the century, where our wind turbines out in West Texas froze, and we sat in the dark for a few days, and they had rolling blackouts. And yes, and people were told that they need to boil the water. And we're like, wait a minute, what do you mean boil the water? Did the filtration system not work, or what's going on? So yeah, so basically the filtration system also runs off of electricity. So if the water goes out, so if the electricity goes out, the water will still work, but the filtration is not working. You got to boil your water. So the question is, of course, that's when electricity came back on. If you're sitting in the dark, you're going to have to, if you got a barbecue pit or if you got a burn pit. I got a burn pit that I hardly use, but yeah. But if you're someone who's got like a barbecue pit or a barbecue grill or a burn pit, you're going to have to come outside, light the fire, cook your food on wood, boil your water on wood. Hey dog, old hound dog. You old hound dog. Yeah, he bumped into the camera. Yeah, so that's what would happen if this video. Oh yeah, this video gone on over an hour. I'm probably going to cut some of this out. Yeah, so that's what's going to happen if electricity goes out. You're back to the 17th century where they're burning wood, cooking wood, cooking food over a wood stove. If you got a wood stove, if you don't, you're screwed. That's what's going to happen to the guys in Europe, and right now they're clearing forests right now. They got guys out with their diesel engine machines cutting all these trees down, and they're drying them now in preparation for winter. And I think the UK is either the UK or France or is it Italy? It's one of those countries, but they're bringing back online one of their large coal burning plants, because they're like, screw this, man, I don't want to riot this winter. Well, that's it. Enjoy your smoke, enjoy your cigar, your cigarette, weed where it's legal, and of course you vapors out there, enjoy your vape. You guys almost got screwed over, but I guess that fell through. And thanks for watching.